Hey everyone, welcome. It's nice to see all of you joining. So, welcome to another Creative Art Time, our weekly live series where we create and talk about art together. So, for those of you who are new here, I'm Emmy Kalia, I'm from the Netherlands. And today we're answering a great question about how to start a portrait. So, Theresa asked, I would like to know if I want to draw a portrait of one of my granddaughters, how do I jump right on in and draw my lines to get placement of the face features or measurements? Or is there a special tablet like you have to draw the lines on any portrait? I've taken your course and I loved it. It opened doors for me. So she's talking about the drawing course, which is available in the Artistic Journey membership. And to answer the question, I'll share tips on how to begin a portrait, place facial features accurately, and what tools or methods can help. So welcome everyone. Good morning from Ohio, Germany, D from California, hello from Connecticut, USA. So it's morning over there, it's evening here in the Netherlands. And the tablet I use is an iPad Pro with an Apple Pencil. And the drawing app I use is called Procreate. This is the logo here. But you don't have to use a tablet like I do. I just show you this as an example. You can also just print out the reference photo and use a pencil to draw guidelines on top. So that's just how I start drawing a portrait, like how I draw the sketch and how I make sure that I get everything accurate. And we'll get started in a moment. And this live session will be around an hour. So if you have any questions along the way, feel free to ask them in the chat anytime. So let's get started. And before I start showing you examples on the iPad, I want to show you a book I have. Maybe some of you know this book. Could you restate the app name? Yeah, I will get to that in a moment. It's called Procreate. The drawing app I use on the iPad is called Procreate. Hello Zoe, welcome. So I want to show you some examples in this book. Let me know if you know this book. This is by Andrew Loomis, Drawing the Head and Hands. And this book helped me getting started when I started learning how to draw portraits. And you can also get the book online. So I just wanted to show you a few examples that helped me. So some of you might have heard about the Loomis method online. And the Loomis method is, so he starts with a ball, and then you have like from the brow from the headline to the brow, to the nose, and to the chin, you have these equal spaces. So Dee also has this book. This is a really great book to help you get started and how to understand drawing portraits. And once you know these basics, you can use these techniques and apply them to any drawing or any reference that you're going to use and draw them accurate. Draw the facial features and all of the proportions of a portrait accurate. So it all starts with the headline, and then the brow line, the nose line, and the chin line. Those are 3 equal spaces, and he also starts with a ball. I'm not really a fan of starting with a ball because that can make it a bit more complicated. I did try it and practice with it, but I just use guidelines like here. So here you can see the guidelines, and you can divide it all in equal spaces. And of course so this is the standard head, and of course every measurement of yeah, every head or face could be a bit different, but it all starts with the basic proportions. So here you can see the headline, the brow line, the nose line, and then the chin line. And then the mouth is usually like 1/3 from the in between the nose and the chin line. And then if you have the brows, then a bit lower is the eyes, of course. And usually if you have the width of one eye and the second eye, then the space in between both eyes are also that same width. And again, this is just basic proportions. So for the side profile, you also have the brow line, the headline, sorry, the brow line, the nose line, and the chin line. So that's how I usually start, with 3 equal spaces. And then you can transfer that with those guidelines onto your sketch, onto your paper. And in his book, he also has, hello from Birmingham, welcome Valda. No problem, you can always watch the replay if you missed a part. So we're going over the book of Andrew Loomis. This one is a great one to help you get started when you're going to draw portraits. He also goes over drawing eyes, different angles. I think this is also really important before you start drawing portraits, that you practice drawing eyes in different angles, drawing 2 eyes, different angles, and then also different mouth, nose, ears, so all kinds of different facial features. And then he also has all of these different expressions, because this can also be important. So it all starts with the basic proportions, but then, for example, if someone is looking surprised, the eyebrows are higher or lower, or yeah, it's just something to practice. And one thing I also think is really important is he mentions in his book that every head is a separate problem. So every head is an individual assemblage of shapes, lines, and spaces. So forget every other face and concentrate on the one you are drawing. I think this is really important, because you start with the basic proportions, but then every portrait or every angle, every face will be unique. So you will eventually focus on the portrait or the reference photo that you're going to be drawing from. So that's what he means by saying every head is a separate problem. Just focus on that face and forget the other portrait you drew. For example, you know how to draw like an eye, a man's eye, but if you're going to draw a woman eye or a certain person's eye, every single eye or person is unique. So just focus on that portrait. So for the women, again, you have the brow line, the hairline, the nose, the mouth, and then here you see 1/3. And then again from the eye. So this is only if the person is looking exactly straight forward. Then you have the eye, both eyes the same width, and then the width in between both eyes. And then the side portrait, also 3 equal spaces, and that's how you can start. And I also always have a middle line, and with that middle line it will help you measure the eye to the left, measure the eye to the right. And that's something that always helps me when I start drawing a portrait. A child also has a bit different measurements, like for example the forehead can be a bit bigger, the eyes can be a bit bigger, but again you will need to focus on the portrait that you're going to be drawing. So yeah, I just wanted to mention this book. Maybe you will find this helpful as well to get a few tips. But let me show you how I start drawing a portrait, like how I draw the sketch, how I get started. And it's, yeah, you can practice drawing a portrait just like, looking back and forth. But I think that it's really helpful to use guidelines. Welcome, Matthias, from southern part of Africa. Hello, Elizabeth. Thank you for giving us this lesson. I love your work and I learned so much from you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So for this portrait, I want to show you how I start, or yeah, where I place the guidelines, because if you think about the Loomis method and think about the measurements, let me show you an example. So you have the, let me make this white, the hairline, then you have the brow line, then you have the nose line, and then you have the chin line. So if you think about these 3 equal spaces, then you can also draw these the same on your drawing paper, on your sketch. I also usually make sure that I have my reference photo the same size as my drawing paper, because I just like to go back and forth, and I like to measure. You can measure with your pencil, and then you can really go back and forth. I like to get my portraits as accurate as possible, because that is what will help you create the same likeness. If you're going to draw something or someone from a reference photo, you want the drawing to look like that person. So if you start with these guidelines, what I usually do, you can also draw a guideline for the eyes, but yeah, you don't have to. You can also just measure from the brow line, like how, let me make this red so you can see what I'm doing. So you can also measure from the brow line and then here, and the other thing is a middle line. So in this case, the middle line will be exactly in the middle of the nose and the mouth, because she's looking exactly straight forward. So with these guidelines, I draw them on my drawing paper, starting with the middle line. So then you know that you have one eye to the left, one eye to the right, and this middle line will be exactly in the middle of the face. When you're going to draw guidelines on your paper, try to make them as light as possible, because you do want to erase these later. So then you have the brow line, and you don't have to draw these really long, because you will need to keep in mind that you're going to be erasing these. So what I usually do is just mark like this and like this and like this. And now I just eyeballed this, but you can also use your pencil. So when I draw, I use a pencil, and then you can measure like this and then place the line, or you can use a ruler. You can measure the lines like this, make sure you get it all accurate. But I also have this tool, and this is really easy to use, because you can measure like this and then draw the lines like this. So this is called a proportional measuring tool. And how you actually use this is if you want to scale up your drawing. For example, your reference photo is smaller than your, let's say, your drawing paper, and you want to draw these same guidelines, then you're going to measure with this side, and then you can see that you have this side that it's a bit bigger. So you can choose which scale you want, and then you're going to use this, and then you're going to measure, for example, this, the smaller, like for the eyes, and then then you see that you're going to have this all at the same scale for the bigger drawing. But what I do is I make sure that I have my reference photo the same size, just to make it easier. So I don't use this like this, but I just use it just like this. And then I go from the left to the right. So Elizabeth said I need one of those tools. Yes, it's really easy to use, because with measuring with the ruler, you will need to remember, like, okay, this is like 4.2 or 5 centimeters or 5.6, and then you will need to measure this. And if you're going to measure with your thumb and your pencil, you can get it less accurate. This is really easy. You just have your pencil in the right hand, this tool in the left hand, and then go like this on the reference photo, and then this on your drawing paper, and then measure like that. Okay, so this is, yeah, a tool that I started using as well, because I like to get my portraits as accurate as possible. Again, to get the same likeness. It's really important. Those dividers are great to use, says D. Yes, I would recommend this, definitely. So once you started with these guidelines, then you can measure for the eyes. So the eyes will be on this line. So I don't usually draw the guidelines that big, because again, you will want to be erasing these. So then you will, you want to start with the bigger outlines and then the smaller, well, the bigger shapes and then the smaller shapes. So the bigger shapes are like the head. Here you have the headline, the hairline and the chin, but then I mean the sides of the head. And then you want to start with the smaller shapes, and that will be the shape of the eye, the shape of the nose, and the placement of the mouth. So once you have the middle line, you can easily measure from the middle line where the side of the head is. And then you can either measure on the brow line, on the eye line, but then you will need to draw that the same on your paper. So let's make this black again. So here's the eye line, then here's the side of the head, and then on this side, the same. And again, you can, yeah, the more you measure, you keep relying on measuring. So what I do is I advise you to eyeball this first and then measure to double check. And the more, don't worry if this goes wrong, because the more you practice this, the better you will get at it. And then you don't have to rely on measuring anymore. And if you do measure, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's just to practice and get your, train your eyes to look for lines and shapes in your reference photo and then draw it the same. It's just to train your eyes and your hand instead of having to rely on measuring. So if you're going to look at the middle line and then the eye, you can like measure like this, eyeball it with your, just think about how far it is and then measure it to double check. That's what I usually like to do. So measure and double check. And if you get it wrong or just it's like a few millimeters off, that's okay, but you're just training your eyes. So for the nose, so this is for the eyes. And then you know that if you go down, let's make this red again. So if you have the measurement of the eyes, if you go down from the inner corner of the eye, again, this is just the basic measurement if the person is looking straight forward. So in this reference photo, she is, but I'm also going to go over a few that are angled, and then it's another, it will be different. So if you go down from her inner eye corners, then you get the width of the nose. If you go down from the iris, then you get the corners of the mouth. You see that? So this is the basic measurement, and it will differ in every portrait, but in this case it is. If you go from the nose to the outer eye corner, then you get the corner of the eyebrow here as well. So those are things you can remember and look for. Proportional, proportional divider, proportional measuring tool. Some call it different. So, but I believe that if you Google on Amazon or for proportional divider, you will get something like this. And I got this on Amazon. It's really cheap, just a plastic one. And you have different materials, of course. Like architects use these kind of tools. So So once you have the nose and they have the placement of the eyes, let's see, this is like the width of the eyes, here the width of the eyes, and then here you will have the nose, because these are the inner corners of the eyes. And then you will go down from the iris. You don't have the iris yet, but again, you can like eyeball it, or you can draw the eye first. And then you have like 1/3 of the mouth. And then this is just like eyeballing and placing. Oh, make this black so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just looking back and forth to my reference photo and to my drawing. So this is like eyeballing it. Next, you want to measure and make sure that you're drawing it correct to create an accurate sketch. So then you have if these are the brow, if this is the brow line, then you have the eyes like this. And if you look at the eyebrows, you want to look at which shape you see. So you see that it goes up like that. So you might think, oh, eyebrows curve like this. But in in this case, in this reference photo, you will see the eyebrows go like this. So use the guideline of the brow. So here at the front, it goes lower than the guideline, and here at the end, it goes higher than the guideline. So that's what I use when I draw. It's really helpful. Okay, so then you have the placement of the facial features, and then you can start to finish the rest. So this is how I start a sketch. And of course, it's you need to complete more to make it more accurate, but this is how you start. And this is how you make sure that the facial features are on the correct placement. So because you have this line for the eyes, the guideline, then you won't accidentally draw one eye higher and one eye lower. You will draw them both on the same line. So that's really important. This is a portrait looking straight forward. Let me show you if you're going to draw a portrait that's angled, for example, then it will be different. So the Loomis method, again, he starts with a ball. Let me make this red so you can see. He starts with a circle, and then from there a middle line, and then the brow, the nose, and the chin line. It's all different, but I thought, when I was practicing, I thought the circle was a bit too complicated. So I just start with the middle line, and I usually place it in between the nose, or in between the eyes, the nose, and the lips. And because this drawing or this portrait is angled, you will need to imagine her head like the middle line is actually a rubber band around the head, you know? So actually it would be like this, the middle line, of course, because it's curved. Her head is round, it's not straight. But again, to make it easier, because you will need to draw this and transfer these this guideline onto your drawing paper, I just use straight lines or angled lines, but not curved. So I usually start with a straight line so that I can transfer it as well. And then because her eyes aren't straight, I draw an angled line. Like this. And then if you use this same, let's duplicate this. You see this same angle is also the same angle that her nose has. Now let's go down to her mouth. You see the corners of her mouth are exactly on this same angle. And then go to her brows. Again, that same angle. So you start with one angle, and then you will draw the same angle for the nose and for the mouth, so that you know that you're drawing the facial features on the same angle. Because I've seen some beginners they start by drawing a portrait. Let's say the middle line. It's a bit different to draw on the screen. So let's say we have the eyes here, and then they draw the eyes like at this angle, but then they start to draw the nose straight, and then the mouth straight, and then something goes wrong along the way. So that's why I always say draw the guidelines first, so then you know that you're going to be drawing all of the facial features, here the chin as well. You see the same angle as the mouth, the chin also has that same angle. So the chin will also be that same angle. And that's really important when you're going to draw a portrait. So before I start, when I'm going to place the guidelines, so again, you don't have to have a drawing tablet. You can print out the reference photo, use a pencil, and then analyze your reference photo. Check the angle, see where, from which angle has the photo been taken. So in this case, the photo has been taken a bit from below. So the chin to the nose line. In this case, this is a bit bigger than, I don't want to complicate this too much. So let me start here again. You remember the 3 equal spaces from the chin line to the nose line, to the brow line, to the hairline. So this is the eye line, and this is just one that I add extra because it's easier. But these are the 3 equal spaces. But you can see now that because the photo is taken from below, you can see that this part is a bit bigger. And you see that because of perspective, that it gets a bit smaller here. See that? If the photo would be taken from above, then the part from her on her forehead would be a bit bigger, and then this a bit smaller, and then here her chin area. So that's how I analyze things before I draw it. And in this case, it's not 3 equal spaces, because again, it's not taken exactly from the front, but then in this case, you're just going to measure. So you measure this, and then the brow line to the nose, and then the nose to the mouth. Oh, like that. And how I draw it, an angled line. How do you make sure that you draw the exact same angle, because you're not drawing a straight line? What I do then is, I don't have straight lines now, but what I do then is, if I have a line like this, let me create these lines. So from the reference photo, you have these lines like this, and then this is the corner or the edges of your paper. That's what I use. So here you go from the top and measure like this. So that's that angle, and then measure this. So then you know that you will have this angle. You can also measure the middle from the middle line. Okay, so that's how I create the exact same angles. And then here for the brow line, I measure from the top, like that. Here, measure this angle. So that's how you will make sure that you're drawing the same angle. And then connect the dots. So it's difficult on the tablet, but if you're going to be drawing on paper, and you can also use a ruler. If you don't have this tool, use a ruler or your pencil to measure. So again, from the top for the 3rd angle line, because you want to make sure that you have the placement and the facial features on the correct. What about if I use grid method? Is it the same? The difference of the grid method and the guidelines method, or how I draw guidelines, is when you're going to draw a grid, like a random grid, let's see. I think we can add a grid. So let's see if I can you see the thickness a bit thicker? No. Okay, so here we have a grid on the reference photo now. Then you're just going to be, I'm not saying this is right or this is a right or wrong way. It's something you could use, this technique. But then you will be like here, this eye is on this, here the eyebrow is here, then her nose. So this is something you can do. The thing I don't like about this is that you have to draw the grid on your reference photo and you have to draw the grid on your drawing paper as well. That's something that takes a lot of time, but drawing these grid lines also means you have to erase them after. Okay, so this is an option, but the thing I don't recommend, so I'm just following the grid here, and then here you have this line. Oh, the nose is not correct. So you will just follow each block. So the nose is like around half here, and then you have the mouth here. You will just follow each block and line. But the thing here is that you're not really understanding the angles and the placement of the head and the facial features, like the Loomis method, like he explains in the book. So I like to use the guidelines instead, because you want to understand the angles and the placement and how the eyes, the nose, and the mouth are placed, instead of just following all of these grids. So again, I'm not saying this is a right or a wrong way. It's just that it takes more time. And I think you're not, with this technique, you're not really understanding what you're drawing. You're just like copying the grid, what's inside of the grid. And let's see, turn this off. With the guidelines, you're understanding that the eyes are at this angle, the nose is at this angle, the mouth, the chin, and then I think that's something, it's also easier for me. That's what I think. But again, everyone prefers their own technique. So I'm not saying this is the best way. This is just something that works for me. You should work with what works for you. If the grid technique works for you, I would go for that. If the tracing technique works for you, like just trace and get started with the shading, it's all, I would say do what works for you. So here's my sketch, and this is how I drew it, by using the middle line. And then you can see that I used the guidelines to draw both of the eyes on this same line. So I didn't accidentally draw one eye higher or too low. I followed that same guideline. See that? And then with that guideline, I also followed that same angle for the nose. I also followed that same angle for the mouth, and then for the chin. So that's how I made sure that I had the exact same placement for the facial features. And then once you have the sketch correct, because I think that is the most important part of the drawing, after you have the sketch correct, then you can start the shading. But if you start the shading, and let's say you're really good at shading, getting the values correct, and everything goes well, but your sketch isn't correct, then your drawing won't look realistic. So the sketch, I think the sketch is even more important than the shading. That's the next part that you will need to get right, but the sketch is the first. So in the drawing course, in the membership, I show you how to start a portrait by creating the guidelines. Then we draw the sketch step by step together. I show you how to follow the guidelines, how to draw it, how to measure, how to double check. And after drawing each sketch, you will get better and better at eyeballing and measuring. And you will, with each drawing, you will learn something new and you will get better that way. So that's how you will improve. Just by making mistakes, just by measuring, just by training your eye to look for shapes, look for angles. And with every portrait, it's different. So here you also have a straightforward, let's say you will draw guidelines on this. So if you have a reference photo, you can use this technique for every reference photo you have. So what I do is start with the middle line. So on this baby, I look for the middle line, and then you can see it's exactly in the middle of the nose, both nostrils, exactly in the middle of the mouth. And then the brows aren't really that visible. So I just usually draw a line for the eyes, then for the nose. And you can see that it's all straight, the same angle. You see the corners of the mouth, all straight. And then the chin. And then I start, and then you have the headline, the hairline. And you can see that from the chin to the nose, to the brow, to the hairline, that's the equal space here in this portrait as well. So then I draw that on my sketch or on my drawing paper by measuring, making sure that the reference photo has the same size. And then do you have a portrait where a woman is looking slightly to the left, the line from the forehead to chin, do not cross the tip of the nose? She would be facing to your right, not left. Do you mean side? A side view like this? Well, let me continue with this one first. So for if you look at his measurement, the basic proportions would be both of the eyes, and then the space in between has the same space. But you see that in this case, the space in between his eyes are wider. So then what I do is I measure both of the eyes. I draw that on the paper, and then you make sure that the width is wider. Like that. So then you have the placement of the eyes. And also with now you go down, you can see that his nose is really big in comparison to the rest of his face. So this baby has a big nose. And I'm not saying this baby has a big nose, but if you're going to draw the same, if you want to create the same likeness, you want to make sure that you draw the same proportions. So in this case, the nose will be a bit wider. So if here is the nose, then you also want to measure that and make sure you draw the nose that same size, same width. If you have the chin here, like usually it's 1/3, but here it looks like it's more half. You see, from the nose to the chin line, that's where the mouth is. And then if you go down from his nose, just a bit more to the left or to the right, that's where you see the mouth corners. So with these proportions, and then from the eye to the nose, from the eye corner, outer eye corners, and then you start to draw the head. And then here you see the hairline, but then you have the top of the head, depending on, well, this is actually a bit lower. The hairline is more like this, and the headline is also lower. depending on the hair. The baby doesn't have a lot of hair, but depending on, yeah, that's the height that will be. So yeah, you can use this technique for any portrait you're going to draw. More frontal, slight right. Do you mean this angle? More, she would be facing to your right. More frontal, slight right. Just a bit angled. Let's see. If you have the side profile, then again, you will imagine a rubber band around the head, but I would just draw a straight line to start with, and then again the brows, the nose, the chin, and you see that in this case the angle is slightly like this, so that angle will be the same for every facial feature. That's how you will get it right, because otherwise you might draw, see, the same angle. Otherwise you might draw one eye a bit too low, one too high, and the eyes are really important in a portrait. Those are the most important. So I really take my time when I'm drawing eyes. I measure like from the middle line, because if you're going to draw an angle like this, you can see that this eye is really small and this eye is wider. Because of perspective, you'll see more of this eye and less of that eye. So I measure from the middle line, then here you see it's smaller. So this is the eye here, and then here this eye is going to be really wide, and it might look different when you're going to draw the sketch, but really trust what you're going to measure. So I try to eyeball what I see, and then I double check, I measure. Sometimes I even triple check. You just really want to get it right. Here's the eyebrow. You see this eyebrow goes all the way here to the middle line, and then all the way here. So you think, oh, that looks really wide for an eyebrow, but that's because it's in perspective. And then here you just see a really small part. And this angle is a tricky one, because here you see more of this eye and here you see less of that eye. So here then you see the nose in perspective. The nose and yeah, the mouth and the chin. It all starts with the middle line and the guidelines. Yeah, no problem. I'm not really sure what you meant, but if you have another question, just let me know. I'm happy to help. And yeah, so my point here is that with every drawing or every reference photo that you're going to create, it all starts. So no matter if the person is looking straight forward, angled. So again, this is also straightforward, but here we have an angled one. Let's see. Again, it's all about starting with the middle line. And then I check the angles of the brows. And I also usually go from the outer corner to the outer corner. And that's the angle that you're going to go for. So in this case, it's almost straight, but you can see that it's slightly angled. And the brow has the same angle. And then the nose, also the same angle. You see that it's just really slightly angled. So this is how I observe my reference photo before I start drawing. You see, it's just all angled a bit. And then here, the corner of the mouth as well, and the chin. And then measuring the eyes, but also the same angle if you go from the crease line or the upper eyelid. You see that? All the same angle. And then the lower eyelid, also This is how you will draw the eyes the same. Because sometimes I see some beginners, they start drawing the portrait at an angle, like the eyes, but then they start drawing the nose straight, and then something goes wrong along the way. So following the guidelines will help you to keep on drawing the sketch accurately. And then here, the same, if you draw this angle the same, then you want to make sure that the nose is on that angle as well. And then here, this mouth corner, you see this one is just a bit lower. Instead of drawing it straight, all of these small things that I'm pointing out, it all matters in the sketch that you're going to draw this baby accurate. So here I have the example. We drew the sketch step by step, starting with guidelines. And that's how, so I always make sure that I have this like the same size. And then I start to measure. So I have the guideline, middle line, and really try to make sure that you draw the guidelines as light as possible. I also have another tip for you, because I've seen some artists, they draw the guidelines with a ruler, but then they press too hard with their pencil along the ruler. And after erasing, and they start coloring or shading with graphite, then that line that they drew, because they pressed a bit too hard, it indented into the paper. And if that happens, after erasing the line, that indented line shows up after shading or after coloring. So when you're going to draw guidelines, especially when you're going to use a ruler, keep your pressure really light. Really try to really keep that in mind. Be careful with that, because you don't want any lines showing up after the coloring. So I had guidelines here, but I erased them all after I had the sketch and the placement of all of the features, and now you don't see them anymore. So maybe you might see this and you think, okay, how did you draw this accurately? How did you draw this the same? Well, yeah, I say it's all about step by step. I start with the first line, the middle line. I start with the angled lines, and then step by step draw the sketch. Here for the ear, if you look at the ear, it's in between the eye line and the brow line. So then I measure how far is it to draw it the same. I measure the ear width or the height. If you go to the left, you see that it's a bit, it's almost on the same line as the lip, the upper lip. So those lines, those are lines I look for in the reference photo, and then I draw that also in my sketch. So I check the lower part of the ear, I check the upper part of the ear, I check the brow line, I check like how far is the eyebrow. If I look at the corner here, and then I measure that, and then I measure from the outer corner how far is the eyebrow, just to make it all the same. And then here you see that the eyebrow doesn't start here where the corner is, but it starts here. So then I have the inner corner of the eye, and then that's where I start to draw the eyebrow. Do you then print the sketch out, or do you draw it on paper? No, I draw the sketch right on my paper, drawing paper. So I have the reference photo next to me. Again, you can print it out or just have it on the screen. So I have my reference photo on the screen. I make sure it's the same size. So usually I have my tablet turned, so I have it the same size. I have the guidelines. This is a bit messy, but I have the guidelines on, and then I have my paper just next to me, and then I start to draw the middle line, And I use this tool or just my pencil to measure. And you want to be as accurate as possible again. So sometimes I eyeball it, but then I check to see if I'm right. So if there's the middle or here, the width of the inside of the eyes. So then I check, is that the same? Or then I go from the eye line to the nose. So here the inner line to the nose, you see that? And then I go from the lower lip, from the nose to the lower lip, measure, from the nose to the lower lip, measure like that. And then, okay, where's the chin? From the lower lip to the chin. Or if you don't have the lip, if you didn't draw the lips yet, then I measure from the nose line to the chin. And then you have the chin. And then I start, and then you can draw the outer, like the edge. So then I go from the middle line to the edge of the head. Then I start to draw the head, and then you go one by one to the each placement of the facial features, and then even the iris. The iris, each detail in the eye is also really important. So if you go like the width of the iris, also double check that. And then here, because it's perspective, you see that this iris is wider than this iris. Those are the details that you will need to analyze in your reference photo because it's angled. So this eye is a bit smaller than this eye. So then measure and double check. And then because the iris, if the person is looking straight at you, of course the iris is a circle, it's round, but in this case the baby is looking up. A circle in perspective is an ellipse, so it's more like an oval shape. It's more like an oval shape instead of a full circle. So that's what you also need to make sure that you're going to draw. So if you have the width, then make sure that you're going to draw an oval. All of those small details, everything matters when drawing an accurate sketch. And then I measure the width or the height of the eye. Like that. I even double check, like if the nostril isn't too wide or too small. So each detail really matters. Do you use regular colored pencils or pastel pencils? I use both, but for this drawing I used regular colored pencils. This is Caran d'Ache Luminance. This is an example from the colored pencil course. But every drawing that I create, it all starts with a sketch. So if I shade it with graphite, if I color it with colored pencils, it all starts with the sketch and with the guidelines. Here I have an example because this is also, I included this in the drawing course because this is a challenging one because it's a side angle. And look at the glasses. So here, let's see. I started with the middle line. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think it was here, like for the nose. And then a line for the eyes, for the nose, for the chin, for the hairline. And then you have the lips as well. You can see that how, yeah, because he has a beard, you're not sure where the chin ends. I think the chin should be a bit higher, like here. Because if you have like the equal spaces, then I think the chin will be like here. But because he has a beard, then the mouth is a bit higher. So don't rely on the basic measurements, but really analyze this person that you see. So if you go from the nose to the mouth, how far is that? And then measure that or create that in your sketch. The ear, if you go from the ear to the left, it's not on the nose line, it's a bit lower. So that will need to be the same in your drawing as well. And then you have the glasses. You see how they are angled a bit. That's a tricky part. So then angle that as well. The hairline, the eyebrow. You see that for the glasses, how it's angled like that. So try to analyze your reference photo and draw the sketch that way. So what I mean is, if I look at this angle, then I draw this angle the same. And you can go like this. So if I have my reference photo, I go like this, and then I check if it's the same angle. Or you can also, with angles, I also teach this in the drawing course, inside the membership. With angles, you can also think about a clock. So if you have like 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, you see that this angle is, if this is 1, 2, 3, then it's almost 3 o'clock. You see that? Check the angle in the reference photo. Try to draw it the same. Angles can be tricky, but again, it's something you can practice. And if you're a beginner now, you're thinking this is all a lot of information. It's all about starting with the basics and going step by step. You will really improve once you start with the basics. And drawing a portrait can be really complex. It can be challenging, but if you go step by step and if you know the right techniques, then you will be able to use those techniques to draw anything you like. So you will start practicing, but then you will be able to choose any reference photo you like and then be able to draw from it. I have one more example here. For example, here is one of the art critiques. In the membership, I also give art critiques. So you can submit a drawing and then I can help you. And then in this case, if you look at the guidelines, let's remove the guidelines for now. So you can see that if I zoom in, you can see the angle of the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. It's not really the same. And if you look at, so I always look for lines and angles in the reference photo. So if you look at the corners of the eyes and you go down, let's do that here. So now you see that the nose isn't quite on the right placement. And then if you go from the nose down, you can see that the mouth corners are here. So they're a bit, the mouth is a bit wider than the nose. But then here in this drawing, the nose and the mouth, you see? So this corner is okay, but then this corner, the mouth needed to be wider, like this. And also, I'm not sure, because if you don't have a middle line, let's draw, try to draw a straight middle line. So you see here, if I draw a middle line on the eyes, then you see that the mouth isn't in the middle anymore. You see that? So that's why I think drawing a middle line is really important. And again, to get back to the difference of the grid method, if you draw in each grid, yeah, you can't really check this. I think guidelines are better because if you have a middle line to start with, you can just check, like, is the mouth in the middle? Are the nostrils in the middle? How wide are the eyes? And this is all, I think it's easier to use guidelines for this. So here you just measure, if you have a middle line, you can see that here you can measure this side and you can measure this side. So this, because she's looking straight forward, this mouth is symmetrical. So then you will need to measure this and measure that, because if you would use guidelines, then you would have this correct. And that's why I think it's important to use guidelines. Do you have preferred brand of paper to work on? My favorite paper to work on is Bristol Smooth, Strathmore Bristol Smooth. And I use it for graphite pencil drawings. I use it for colored pencil drawings. I even use it with charcoal. So yes, my favorite is Bristol Smooth paper. So if you start drawing a portrait and you don't start with those guidelines, you might get it wrong along the way. And you might not, maybe you see something's off, but you're not really sure what is off. So that's when I give the example. in the critiques the example of the guidelines by starting with the middle line. So if you have the middle line here, you can see that the nose isn't straight and the mouth isn't straight, so the mouth isn't wide enough. And then even if the shading is looking good here in this drawing, because that is, but then because the sketch proportions aren't that right, something doesn't look right in the drawing. And if you don't look at the reference photo, you could think, okay, the drawing looks good. But if you want to achieve the same likeness, create the same person as in your reference photo, then you really want to get all of those details right. So you see the eyes are looking good, but then something went wrong here. Guidelines will help with that. So yeah, I would recommend you to practice this as well. Choose any reference photo you like, something you want to draw. I would start with a portrait that is looking straightforward first, so that you can practice with the placement of the hairline, the brow line, the nose line, and the chin line, and then check to see if it has the same, like 3 equal spaces. And it doesn't always have to be the same, because again, if a picture is taken a bit from below or above, then it will differ a bit. But try to analyze. Just pick any reference photo, pick a portrait, or just take a picture of yourself, or maybe just look in the mirror and look at how your eyebrows, your hairline, their nose line, and your chin line, how those are 3 equal spaces. And then check the measurement, or check the width of the eyes. In this case, you can see that the eyes are quite small, but then the width in between is wider. See that? But then if you choose another reference photo, you might notice that the width of the eyes are the same, and the space in between the eyes are also the same. So 3 equal spaces. In this case, it's not. So analyze each reference photo that you're going to draw, or just, you don't have to draw, just analyze. That's what the tip I would give to you. If you don't have a tablet, or just use your phone, you can also just use your phone and then imagine guidelines, or go with the pencil like on top of your screen like this. Check angles, yeah, starting with a front angle, and then I would go for like side profile angles. Check how the eyes are angled. Check how one eye is wider than the other eye. Analyze and see how a portrait, yeah, how the facial features are all placed. That's the first step. And then draw guidelines, starting with the middle line. Starting with the brow line or the eye line, nose, chin, mouth. Draw that, and then start measuring each facial feature. Double check. I would advise you to practice like that. Don't worry about the likeness yet, but just focus on getting an accurate sketch first. Practicing that will help you get better and better, and I promise you, after practicing a lot, you will be able to use any reference photo and draw an accurate sketch from it. So yeah, I have done a lot of talking. If you have any questions, now is the time to ask. And yeah, I think that's it for now. So I hope you enjoyed this session. I feel like I talked a lot. I wanted to give you as much as tips, and I wanted to show you as much as the techniques I use and the techniques that helped me creating an accurate sketch. I think that is the most important part. If your sketch isn't right, when you start the shading or you start the coloring, the portrait or the drawing, it just won't look right. The sketch is the most important part. So yeah, again, I hope this was helpful for you. And I hope you enjoy this live session again. So if you have any suggestions for next week's topic, or if you still have a question, feel free to drop it in the comments after this. Also, don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you found this helpful. And if you'd like to get updates and reminders, you can also join my email list. There's going to be a link below the video. Or maybe if you have a question you'd like me to answer in a future session that I can go over, there's also a link below to submit it. And if you're interested in learning more from me, you can check out my step-by-step art courses or join my art membership. But you'll find all the details in the link below. So you're welcome everyone. I'm glad to hear you enjoyed this session. What sorts of things convey emotion? My drawing without a reference photo looks like a statue. I would say practice drawing from a reference photo. Like, the book of Andrew Loomis also has tips and also has examples of drawing different types of emotion. So how to create a different emotion. So this person is looking like really, how can you say that? Calm. So the eyebrows are calm, the mouth corners are straight. If you're going to draw someone that looks happier, the mouth corners will be up, or someone that's confused, maybe the eyebrows will be a bit, how do you say that? How the eyes look, how the eyebrows look, how the mouth looks, it will all change the emotion of the person and how someone is feeling or how someone looks. So I would say start using reference photo and again observe, why is someone looking angry, why is someone looking happy? How can you translate that in your drawing? By drawing the mouth corners up because smiling, or those indented lines because someone is smiling. Those are all things, or when someone's angry, those lines on the forehead, those are things that will all be part of someone's emotion. So wonderful tutorial. I learned a lot. I can't wait to get started. I'm so glad to hear that. Sire already joined the email list. That's great. So you will receive updates from upcoming live sessions. Would love to see a tutorial on pastel pencils too. Great. I have that planned because I also want to practice more with pastel pencils, but also in the membership we have different art projects about pastel pencils. So if you're interested in joining the membership, you can sign up for the waitlist and you will be the first to know when we open to join again. Which paper? The paper I use is Strathmore Bristol Smooth. It's the paper I use for any type of drawing. Guten Abend, that's good evening in Dutch. In Holland we say goedenavond. It sounds really strange, but good evening in English. You're amazing at explaining, so I'm so glad to hear that, because sometimes I feel like I'm rambling or that I go too fast, but really in the drawing course we go step by step, and also instead of talking, I just show you the examples. I draw with you step by step, and that's easier than just explaining things. So yeah, okay, that's it for today. I hope I'll see you next week for another creative session, and have a nice day or evening, everyone. Bye bye.